Hi, Russell Bly with RE/MAX Champions in our Land O'Lakes, Florida office. And I want to take a few minutes to bring up three things about the lawsuit that you may or may not have heard about with the National Association of Realtors and several large real estate brokerages across the country, including RE/MAX Champions. Happened a couple weeks ago, so we're going to talk about that, talk about what the immediate impacts are going to be here in the Tampa Bay area and what the future may look like. So first off, let me just say, we had this lawsuit, $1.8 billion settlement. RE/MAX settled early on this. They settled for about $66 million, which represented about half of their cash reserves at the time. And, RE/MAX thought it was pretty serious. I'm sure they looked at everything that was going on in this particular state. And keep in mind, this only affects one state. I believe it was Missouri, where this lawsuit took place. And RE/MAX settled for that. And they're pretty much out of the picture. So nothing is really going to happen there. But understand that the judge in this case has the ability to award damages up to triple damages, which means we could be looking at almost $6 billion. Now, if the judge does that, the reality is for the future and for the immediate times, there's just not enough money there. The National Association of Realtors doesn't have it. Nobody has it. So basically, we're looking at some of these places declaring bankruptcy to get out of the settlement. And if they do that, the judge decides to offer those damages. The realtors are not going to have to pay because they're going to be in bankruptcy. The people that joined the lawsuit are not going to get any money, but more importantly, those attorneys aren't going to get any money. So I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But also, just recently, other attorneys have jumped on the lawsuit bandwagon. There's now a couple other lawsuits that encompass all 50 states. And this does create an issue. But the issue is an issue of perception, and it's things that's going on in the mind. We've already spoken with buyers that say, hey, who pays the commission on this? And let me explain how it works here in Florida and how it works with our brokerage. Basically, the way it works is we don't get the commission as real estate agents. The commissions go to our broker, and here it's RE/MAX Champions. And when we sit down with a client, we negotiate that commission individually. We are not told what type of commission we should be asking for. It's basically up to us as realtors to understand our business model and know what it's going to take to keep us in the real estate business as individuals. So myself and my wife Patricia, work with clients and we come up with a number. Typically, that number may be anywhere from 5 to 10%, depending on the property, depending on what expenses we're going to have in marketing that property, and what we think our brokerage is going to offer to buyers' agents. But the bottom line is, when somebody's sitting down to list a piece of property, that's when that commission gets determined, and then we work with our brokerage and determine what is a fair and equitable value to pay a buyer's agent that comes to sell that property. So understand, as part of RE/MAX, we go through a lot of training, we have a lot of fees associated with it, and we spend a lot of money staying current with technology, such as video, such as artificial intelligence, such as all the other things that go into marketing a property. So we have to consider all of that. And it's not just the time that we spend on that one particular real estate listing. We may go on other listing appointments where we're spending money, spending our time, investing in it. So it's kind of the average of all the work that we put into the industry over a given time period that's going to determine what we look to set that commission for, and is what we think we can set a commission for to have another agent show the property. Probably around 80 to 90% of the properties that we list are not sold by us directly or sold by our brokerage directly. And we kind of like that because it's very hard to represent a buyer and a seller in a transaction and have somebody not feel that maybe their interests were not properly represented. Even though the bottom line is when we work for a client, we are what's called a transaction broker. Our job is to brokerage that transaction, to get the transaction done. So that's what we want to do for our buyers, and that's what we want to do for our sellers. And in the current market, it's really not making any changes. Although the changes is that I now have clients asking me, I now have buyers asking, hey, who's paying the commission on this property? Well, the way the lawsuit is right now, nothing's really changing. Nothing's going to be changing over probably the next 1 to 2 years. Now, in the future, are things going to change? Sure. We may have people that list their property and say, we're not going to pay a buyer's agent for that property. Or we may have a large migration of people out of the National Association of Realtors. That could be a bad thing. And the reason is, being part of the National Association of Realtors, we realtors abide by a code of ethics. Now, there's a difference between a real estate agent and a realtor. Realtors belong to the National Association of Realtors. Yes, people who just got sued. Now, also understand that the National Association of Realtors not only give us a code of ethics to abide by, but they're a big lobbying group for basically hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of independent realtors throughout the country who do business and who depend on the National Association of Realtors to represent our interest in Tallahassee, Florida, in the city of Tampa, in the state of Washington, or in Washington, D.C., to go before Congress and lobby for things that are important to getting people into home ownership, and that's largely individual home owners. Now, if that goes away, that could be problematic if realtors are not abiding by an ethical code. I know that myself and my wife Patricia are going to abide by the code of ethics whether we're in or out of the National Association of Realtors, because we believe in treating everybody equitably. Now, the future, what may happen? Well, a couple different things. Some of the suggestions are that realtors are going to go to a pay-by-hour service. Well, we're not going to be hourly employees. There's not going to be a brokerage that really hires agents and pays them on a W-2. Purple Brick had tried that. Some other companies had tried it. They went bankrupt. That business model does not work. The model that works is the model that we've been operating in for years. Now, there may be agents that become buyer's agents that do their services a la carte. They charge, maybe they'll charge you $100 to take you to a house, open the door with their electronic key, let you in, and that's all they're going to do. Others may go a little bit further, but understand that right now, if you're working with us here at RE/MAX Champions, we have errors and omission insurance. We have a lot of training. We have a lot of programs that we go through. We have a lot of expertise to help our buyers negotiate the best deal. Perhaps in the future, it's going to be where that buyer's commission is paid by the buyers themselves. So in that scenario, buyers may look to their agents to get the price reduced by whatever that amount is that they negotiate with their buyers. But that's going to get pretty messy because most buyers generally are not going to have an extra 2, 3, 4% up and above the asking price of that property to pay out of their pocket. So it's going to need to be financed in the transaction. FHA doesn't allow for that. The VA doesn't allow for that. Will they allow for that in the future? We don't know. But here's what we know here at RE/MAX Champion. The model that we have has been working wonderfully for decades, and it will continue to work in the future. And that model is this. Myself or my wife Patricia, as a listing agent, will sit down with a property owner who wants to sell their property. We're going to negotiate a total commission, 5, 6, 7, 10%, whatever it is, based on the services that we need to offer and based on the value that we feel that we're bringing to the table. And then we're going to negotiate basically of our broker's commission, how much money is going to be paid to a buyer's agent. If that number is 0 and there's no code of ethics, the property's not going to get shown by anyone but us. So the bottom line is that we want to sell that property. We know that properties are sold by buyer's agents. We want to give buyers enough commission to show the property, to handle the transaction, to sell the property, but we want to make enough money on our side to cover our costs. It costs a lot more to list a property, to advertise a property, to sell a property than it does for a buyer's agent to go out and simply open a door to a property and handle the transaction process throughout. So there's going to be some jockeying that goes on, but that's what we have done in the open here in Florida for literally for decades. So don't think a lot of things are going to change. There's going to be people trying to take advantage of the press that has gone into it. And frankly, most people don't understand everything that has gone into these lawsuits. Myself, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. But if you feel uncomfortable with the present situation, you can always go out and hire an attorney to review our standard Board of Realtor contracts that we use here at RE/MAX Champions. We've been using them for quite a long time. They do get some updates from time to time and how things are handled, but pretty much there's a great deal of standardization. It's not standardization in the form of fixing a commission. It's standardization in the form of saying, this is what we do, how we do business. These are the specific disclosures that we use. And we use all of these tools from the Board of Realtors to make sure that our sellers are basically handled in the same manner with the same level of security, that they're dealing with professionals, and that we're mitigating any risks for them. And it's the same thing with our buyers. Our buyers are handled in such a manner that everything is out front, everything is in the open. They know when they sign their contract, they know what is going to the buyer, they know what is going to the listing agent, they know everything across the board, and it works very well. So where do you go from here? Well, if you want to purchase land or a home in our area, or if you want to list your property, reach out to myself. My name is Russell. Our information's at the bottom of the video. Reach out to my wife, Patricia, and we will get you hooked up with somebody from our RE/MAX Champions team that will lead you through every step of the buying and the selling process. We're going to do it transparently. We're going to do it with a great deal of experience on the back end, and we're going to do it fairly to make sure if you're a seller, we represent you and get that transaction handled. If you're the buyer, it's the same thing. Now, I'm going to tell you, the market has changed substantially. Right now, as a seller, you're not going to get offers $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more above the asking price. That's why it's critical to work with experienced agents that know the market. The market's a little bit different in South Tampa than it is in South Newport Richey. So if you're a buyer, don't expect to get a home for $50,000 or $60,000 under the asking price. Understand that if the seller is working with a qualified listing agent, that property is more than likely listed at the proper sales price. So the bottom line is make sure that you get good representation from your realtors that are actual realtors, not just real estate agents, that are abiding by a code of ethics, that are staying up to date with what is happening with the litigation throughout the United States right now, and more importantly, that's staying up with the technology, that's doing videos, that's getting your property out there, that's getting your property sold. Right now, if you have an FHA property that's, under $350,000, you can expect that property to move very, very quickly. If it's over that amount, it may sit on the market a little bit more than it was a year or 2 years ago during the lockdowns, during the time when everybody was coming to Florida with hands full of cash, just buying up everything in sight. Also understand that properties are still appreciating. So even though the interest rates may seem like they're high now, I will tell you, myself and my wife, Patricia, purchased at 16% in the 80s when we bought our first home. We later refinanced to 9%, and we were just so happy that it went to 9%. Understand that over the last 50 years, interest rates have hovered around 7% as an average over 50 years. So are we going to see the 16% interest rates again? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. Certainly that will put some downward pressure on prices, but you're going to make up for it in the amount of interest that you have to pay. Are we going to see those 3% interest rates on homes that we saw over the last couple of years? Well, maybe, maybe not. It may be a long time to see it, but on the flip side, if those interest rates get compressed like that, you're going to see home prices continue to rise. So it's kind of a balance that we work with as real estate agents. And the bottom line is, if you need a home, now is the time to think about getting into a home. It may not be the time to get into the home of your dreams with 6 bedrooms, 5 baths, if you're at the end of your financial means. Think about getting into something that you can actually afford with the interest rates where they're at. If they go down, you could refinance. If house prices come down, yeah, your $300,000 home may be worth $250,000, but if you squeeze yourself into that $600,000 home, it may only be worth $400,000 in the future. So think about that. In the future, if you want to upscale, prices of those houses may come down, but the value of your house hasn't lost as much money. There's always balances that need to be taken into consideration. That's why sitting down with experienced agents that have stood the test of time, that have been in the market. Patsy and I were born and raised in the area. Well, Patsy was born in Tennessee, but she's still basically Floridian. Her dad brought her down as a little baby, but she's lived her entire life here in South Tampa. I grew up in North Tampa. We've lived in Pasco County as a couple with our children. So we know these areas, we know what's going up, we know what's going down, and we can help you get into the right area for you financially. There is a big price difference in areas, so we'll work with you with that, and we'll get you with either ourselves or one of our experienced agents to help carry through that transaction for you. So what you're hearing on TV, take a deep breath. Everybody's got an opinion. They're like other things where there's lots of opinions, but get with somebody that you feel you can communicate with and you can trust. So that's what I have as far as breaking news on this real estate lawsuit that seems to have everybody in a dither, but it's not affecting us, it's not affecting our business, it's not affecting our buyers, and it's not affecting our sellers. What's affecting everybody is interest rates and insurance premiums. So those are the things that we'll talk about in another video. Thanks for watching. For myself, Patricia, it's Russell Bly, wishing you all the best that life has to offer. God bless everyone.